13,000 jobs lost in Denmark. That's the price of Trump's tariffs, according to Danish industries.
And then it's tariff.
But that's not factoring in the additional hit to the Danish economy from a possible full-blown recession. The biggest problem facing the global economy today might not be the tariffs themselves, but the uncertainty that Trump has created in the global economy. Businesses will not make investments in an uncertain environment, and this will bring up unemployment and bring down spending and demand in the economy, thus creating a downward spiral. But what does this mean for you living in Denmark? Will you lose your job? And in that case, what are the chances of getting a new one? This video will give you 5 ways you can prepare yourself for a recession in Denmark. Stick to the very end, where I've included my favorite bonus tip to weather a recession and maybe save your job. But before we start, I'm Steven, a social science researcher and PhD from Copenhagen Business School. I've experienced several economic crises in Denmark, and so I know a thing or two about what to look out for. First, you should understand the strengths and weaknesses of the Danish economy. The Danish economy is very strong because it's diversified and flexible. Danish companies at large are supplying high-end quality products that can be difficult to substitute. This includes pharmaceuticals, industrial machinery, renewable energy, advanced logistics, and agriculture. Danish companies can adapt fast to new circumstances by reducing the workforce quickly. At the same time, the workforce is highly educated, and the state helps upskilling unemployed people into sectors with more demand. If people lose their jobs, the Danish benefits keep people spending money, which in turn counter layoffs in retail, reducing the overall shock to the economy. In other words, most people that lose their job in Denmark will continue living in the same place and house and buying almost the same things more or less. The impact on a private economy might be on foreign travel and maybe selling the car if things are really dire. Also, the Danish state has a debt of only 31% of GDP, so the state can initiate public works and tax rebates to support spending very easily. On the negative side is that Denmark is a very small and open economy, and Denmark is therefore highly dependent on the global demand, especially European and US demand. Therefore, Denmark might be hit pretty hard if Trump's tariffs lead to a wider trade war where all major economies sort of close down. But the European Union is still the main market for Denmark, and since it's one open market, Denmark will rely on EU demand and its own competitiveness. So overall, Denmark is a good place to be during a recession in my point of view. My second advice is that you have to consider which sector you work in. Does the company you work for sell things that people cannot substitute, like medicine, food, or energy? Then you are probably in a good place. But if you work as a consultant in sales, customer success, or the creative sector, these might be areas where companies and consumers will soon be spending less money. So if you're job hunting or planning a career move anyways, get closer to those industries that sell sticky products that people need no matter what. My third advice is to keep learning and stay flexible. It's all about productivity and the demand for your labor and services. If you are the most productive office mouse on your floor, you are likely to keep your job for longer. But it's also about getting new capabilities and projects on your CV, so it's ready and up to date should you need it. So take a moment to think about the things you have achieved in your current job for the past maybe year or two, and just note it down. Regarding flexibility, ask your manager about the outlook for the company. Sometimes you can gauge between the lines what is going on, even if it's not official yet. Having an open dialogue with your manager about your role and position might give you an early warning, which can really save you in many cases. That brings me to my fourth point, unemployment insurance. If you have had a chat with your manager, you might get a hint of layoffs. Now is really the time to ensure that you have A-kasse and maybe even a salary insurance. I've added some links to some good ones in the description down below. Remember, there's a waiting period before you can actually get benefits from A-Kasse and a salary insurance. So you really have to think about this now and get signed up, even if things are still rosy in your area of business. Personally, I always pay to A-Kasse, considering it my sort of first line of defense should the shit hit the fan. My fifth advice is to put aside some money for a rainy day. Personally, I like to be conservative, having a saving of 6 months in fairly liquid assets, but that might be too much for most people. And if you have your savings in stocks, be mindful that you might need them just after the global economy has taken a massive hit, in which case you might lose a lot of money if you're forced to sell. You only lose your money when you press sell, right? So keeping some cash might be a good idea. And finally, my bonus tip is to dabble with a secondary source of income. Maybe do some consultancy on the side or a little web shop. This is actually what I'm doing with this YouTube channel. And even though it don't really bring me much money, I at least have something to work on should I lose my job. A side hustle will both give you a more diversified profile in case you will be looking for a job, but it will also give you a potential income source if everything comes down hard. So do you think Denmark will be in a recession in the near future? Let me know in the comments below how you would prepare for it eventually and personally. Subscribe to this channel if you want more videos and tips and tricks about living in Denmark. Take care and thanks for watching.